Having your elastic bunch up on your sewing project is so annoying. So today I'm showing you two methods you can use to get perfect elastic every single time. So let's start with elastic method 1. I'm going to call this the invisible elastic method. So for this you're going to need 1 inch elastic, and I'm going to cut that to the circumference of my waist. So I folded it over about 1 inch, as you can see, so it's overlapping, and I'm going to pin that overlapped edge to the side seam of our skirt. This can also work for pants as well. Then I'm going to find the opposite end of the elastic, and I'm going to pin that side to the other side seam that we have as well, to make sure that the elastic is distributed evenly. Then again I'm going to find the half point or the midpoint of the elastic, and I'm going to pin the center of the skirt to that, and I'm also going to do the same for the back. And again, this is just to make sure that the elastic is distributed evenly. I'm going to add as many pins or clips as I need to hold the elastic in place. Once we've added our pins or clips, I'm going to stitch around the entirety of the hem or the top of the elastic with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I don't have a serger, so what I'm going to do is use my overcast stitch that I have on my sewing machine. If you don't have an overcast stitch, you can use a zigzag stitch instead. So once you've stitched the hem, this is what it should be looking like. Now all we need to do is fold it over once, as you can see, and we're just stitching down along that line or stitching in the ditch. We're using a straight stitch as well, and doing that stitch is just going to help hold the elastic in place and stop it from flipping over. This method is perfect for skirts or tube tops or any kind of outfit or fit where you want it to have an invisible elastic look. And now let's move on to the next one. So I'm going to call this second method the elasticated method, if you will. And to do this, all I'm doing is stitching around the entirety of the top of the skirt using an overcast stitch, and this is going to stop it from fraying once we have added the entirety of the elastic and completed the skirt. Now we're going to grab our 1/4 inch elastic, cut to the circumference of our waist, and for some reason when I use this elastic it doesn't cause bunching as opposed to me using thicker elastic, so that's why we're using this. I'm just measuring the elastic to make sure it is 1/4 inch, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my chalk and my tape measure, and on the top of our skirt or the pants, whatever it is you're sewing, I'm going to mark down 1/2 inch. And we're marking down 1/2 inch because granted we're going to need a tiny bit of seam allowance for when we are creating the casing for the elastic. So yeah, I'm adding my chalk markings and then folding it down and adding as many pins or clips as I need just to hold it in place and make sure it is all secure. And then I'm going to press it, and pressing it is just going to help make sure that when we do stitch it, it comes out as neat as physically possible. And then I'm going to take this to my sewing machine. So we're using 1/4 inch seam allowance on our sewing machine, and I'm actually using a zigzag stitch for this just because I think it does come out quite well when you do use it for this method. So I'm stitching all the way around, remembering to leave 1 inch unsewn so we can use that to add in our elastic afterwards. So now I'm going to grab my 1/4 inch elastic, and I'm cutting this to the circumference of my waist, and then I'm going to grab a safety pin and I'm kind of pushing that through the elastic at the top, and I'm going to use a safety pin to thread the elastic all the way through the whole of the casing that we've just sewn until it pops out through the other side. This can be difficult, maybe I just make it seem difficult, but take your time when you're pushing it through so that your safety pin doesn't unhook in the middle of you pushing it through. So once my elastic has popped through the other end, I'm going to remove the safety pin and I'm going to overlap the elastic by about 1 inch, and I want to stitch that in place. You can either sew this by hand or you can sew it on your sewing machine. If you do have any bits of elastic kind of sticking out, you can pull on your dress or your skirt or your pants to kind of distribute it a bit more evenly. And then once you are happy with the encasing of the elastic, you can go ahead and stitch the gap closed using our zigzag stitch and the 1/2 inch seam allowance that we had used before. So this is what the second method came out looking like. This, I love using it for making like pants or trousers or biker shorts and bits like that. Again, this works for stretchy materials, but let me know which method you preferred most. Make sure you subscribe so I know that you enjoy videos like this, and check out this sewing tutorial next.